About the time where in the tonsillectomy, the stuff in your throat's just like falling out and you're just like miserable. I can hardly eat anything that is small because it was hard to chew already small food items, and that will be important later on. Every year since I was in middle school, my family would travel to Wisconsin to visit my grandparents, Granny Yvonne and Grandpa Arlen, or Al, Laporte, the day after Christmas and stay through New Year's Day, and then return to Indiana. 2015 was a special year. No really specific reason why it was a special year, but Granny was planning on having the whole family over for dinner. And for that dinner we had, you guessed it, spaghetti and meatballs. Granny had made enough to feed a literal army. And I mean, yeah, we have a big family on my mom's side in the cheese state, but it was a lot of spaghetti. We arrive at my grandparents' house, and as we wait for family members to arrive, hardly anyone shows up. They either couldn't make it anymore, didn't know we were having a family dinner, etc. Excuses. So here is my grandparents, my mom and my dad, and myself at the dinner table with all of this spaghetti. Which then turned out to be just my grandparents and parents because I couldn't eat the spaghetti because it was too small to chew up and swallow without choking. If you knew my dad, he was a big leftover guy. He didn't like to waste much. So, every single day that we were in Wisconsin that year, he ate spaghetti for every single meal. I'm not joking. Every single meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, was spaghetti in some form or another. Plain spaghetti with butter for breakfast, spaghetti casserole, spaghetti bake, chicken parmesan, shrimp scampi, you name it, he probably ate it. Those were just the ways to make spaghetti more interesting. Dad would always give Grandma a really hard time of how much spaghetti she made that year around Christmas. He loved to tease people in his jolly, joking ways. Dad was nicknamed the Spaghetti Guy from that Christmas day to even now. Since that Christmas in 2015, spaghetti has had a whole new meaning in our family. Every time Dad would go to eat at a restaurant and spaghetti was on the menu, you guessed it, he would order the spaghetti, take a picture of it, and send it to my grandma in Wisconsin and say, "Look what I'm having for dinner." And Dad would think it was the funniest thing ever. He was truly a funny guy, but seeing him laugh at his own jokes made it way funnier than what it was intended. Now, a whole year goes by. Christmas of 2016 rolls around. Dad is trying to think of ways to prank Grandma. It was like seeing the Grinch's face when he got some sort of evil scheme up his sleeves. Dad decides, what if we got the ingredients for spaghetti as a gift? The spaghetti noodles, the sauce, the Parmesan cheese, the meatballs, the garlic bread, the whole 9 yards. And back then, we would travel to my oldest brother's Peter's house to spend Christmas Day evening with them and then take off for Wisconsin the next day. So here we are, traveling in Indiana with the ingredients to make spaghetti and meatballs from one place to the next, trying not to forget the meatballs in the freezer along the way. Dad is just about in stitches of what is to come when Granny opens her present, specifically from Roger, on that post-Christmas evening. When we get to my grandparents' house, and my parents are putting together a bag for the ingredients to go into, trying to be all sneaky, but mostly being giddy and laughing at themselves for what is about to unfold. When it's time to open presents and Dad gives Granny her present, she opens it and says some jokingly choice of words to Dad, and he is just beside himself, laughing so hard at his practical joke to his own mother-in-law. They had the best relationship. It gets better. Granny is a whiz at sewing, quilting, crocheting. Anything from Joanne Fabrics was her jam. Currently still is. Since she had these skills, she made Roger a very special gift. Now, if you've ever eaten with Roger, there is 99.9% chance he spills something on his shirt every single time. I see lots of nodding of heads. You agree that it's not just us, it's everybody.
I'm pretty sure I get it from him too.
Yep, yeah, all right. Same. I spill stuff on myself all the time. It's genetic. So the gift that Granny made was a bib. Full front torso bib with the words "I love leftovers" on it, with yarn, made a plate of spaghetti in the middle, and he would wear it so proudly. Now keep in mind, this is the same Christmas that he gives her the ingredients for spaghetti, and she gives him the bib. They had no idea. This wasn't planned. It's just coincidence. And so Dad and Granny's love of teasing each other never wavered. So of course for dinner that night, we had spaghetti and meatballs. Christmas of 2017 rolls around. Dad is continuing to think of pranks to play on Granny with spaghetti. He decides we need to outdo ourselves from last year. Yeah, we can get the ingredients for spaghetti again, but we need to do something extra special. My mom is a photographer, and so she decided to set up a scene in our dining room that looks like an Italian bistro. A plate of spaghetti and meatballs sits on the table with Dad sitting in the chair behind him with his "I love leftovers" bib on. And since Roger managed to spill something on himself while eating most of the time, he smears spaghetti all over his face to create the most glorious spaghetti eating picture in the history of ever. You'll see it in the slideshow, and we have a picture on one of our tables as well. Mom and Dad print the picture on like a 16 by 20 picture, frame it, wrap it up, and give it to Granny as a present in 2017. We arrive at my grandparents' house, open presents, and Granny thinks that the prank ended last year in 2016. No. That's not how Roger did things. He will milk any funny situation for all it's worth, and will never let you live it down in the best way possible. When Dad hands Granny the picture of him eating spaghetti with it all over his face, she bursts out laughing. Granny again says some jokingly choice words to Roger about the spaghetti. He will continue to not let her live down how much spaghetti she made in 2015. That same Christmas, my grandparents and my mom decide to hang the picture in the kitchen at my grandparents' house. But it didn't just become just a simple picture on the wall. No. It became a shrine to my dad and his love of leftover spaghetti. They hung up a large wooden fork and a spoon and a cutting board with fake tomatoes and grapes. And my grandpa even had the great idea of installing one of those picture lights like you would see at Buca de Beppo or the old spaghetti factory. There's also a nameplate underneath this picture frame that is hung in my grandparents' house that says I honestly don't even know how to pronounce it, but it's like spaghetti tremalpalapalitskapa. It's like some dinosaur my grandpa made up about spaghetti. And underneath it, it says, "Extremely rare, do not approach." So, the spaghetti prank pranks come to an end around 2019, but the stories and the memories we have associated with spaghetti and leftovers will forever be in our hearts because of our very own spaghetti guy. Thank you. At this time, we would like to release you.